Welcome to the FIT40 Podcast, where we take all the confusing, conflicting fitness and nutrition information and break it down so that you can live your healthiest, strongest, most energized life. I'm your host, Brian Fitzsimmons. Let's get it started. There we go. All right, we are live. Hey, everybody listening in right now, I am trying out a new software, so I apologize in advance if I mess this up, but hopefully it'll be a better and new and improved version. So today, to kick off this new upgrade, we have an amazing guest with us. We have Jeff Dalzell with us. He is the man, the myth, the legend behind all the parenting posts that you see on Instagram, or at least me, because this guy's loaded with info. He's got young kids at home, and he knows how to navigate those waters better than most people I've ever seen on the internet. So I know he's going to be a wealth of knowledge. We're going to have a great discussion. Welcome to the show, Jeff.
Thanks, Brian. I'm excited, man. It was great to connect when we met in Dallas for the first time in person. It's fun to make the connection on internet people in real life and to be able to kind of then keep that connection going beyond that a few months later and finally be able to have a lengthy chat. Here is going to be good to chat.
Absolutely. I mean, this will be a lot more in-depth than we could have done at, what was that place? The football bowling fouling?
Fouling or fouling. That was cool, man. I feel like they were everywhere too. That was like a Texas thing, but that was incredibly difficult. I'm a better than average thrower of the football. And I coached quarterbacks for 5 years. That was friggin' hard. That was not an easy task. So I could understand the frustration there.
Yeah. The fact that you've even coached people and you're like, this shit's hard.
It was not a short throw and you're aiming at a bowling pin. It's not a large target, like a normal size bowling pin. It'd be one thing if they were large bowling pins, but it was like a normal size bowl, and it was low too. So you had to kind of throw it at the dirt. It was challenging.
Yeah. For anybody who
probably didn't help that we had a couple of, didn't help that we had a couple cocktails too.
That definitely didn't help matters. But for anybody that's like, what the hell are these guys talking about? There was basically a setup where there were bowling pins on two sides. You were kind of set up like you're playing beer pong almost, except it was 20 yards or 10 yards. And the goal was to 20. Knock down all. Yeah, it was about that. The goal is to knock all the pins down with a football, and it's hard because all the pins were normal bowling size pins. So they're shin height, and we're trying to trying to snipe downwards. But then our mutual friend Anthony Pluff, who's a little bit shorter than us, was having no issues at all, destroying everybody.
Yeah. No, it was the sleepers. There were ringers in that game, people who were you wouldn't have looked at them and been oh, they're gonna crush this game. And Anthony was one of them who was just he was just picking it apart, man. He was not so you see him throw a couple and you're all right, we're in good shape, and he was just on it the whole night.
Yep. Absolutely. And I know Mike Dola and his crew next to us are making me feel bad. I'm like, damn, these guys actually kind of have this together. Meanwhile, I'm I played football since third grade, and I look like I've never played in my life.
No, serious. That was a bunch of dads though on a dad trip without kids. They were having a good time. Oh yeah.
Speaking of which, let's dive in a little bit into the joy that is parenting and how it makes fitness and nutrition so much easier, because it just makes your life so much. There's so many less responsibilities. It's you have nothing on your plate at that point, right?
No, I literally just posted about this last night. I found a GIF, I guess is what, not a GIF, a GIF, right? Of the person throwing a really heavy bag of trash on their back, and it just pulls them down. And I'm this is what it's like trying to pick up what you used to do before kids after parenthood. It's you think you can do it, and then it just takes you right over. It's the best analogy I heard when somebody, because we have a 3-year-old, and then we have 18-month-old twins, and everybody hears that and goes, oh my gosh. And I go, yeah. They're what's that like? And I was well, imagine you're drowning and then somebody hands you two babies. that was what our life was like, and has been like a little bit. So yes, the challenges are very real in terms of being able to the responsibilities of you come like I am fourth or fifth place in my house in terms of living things that get my attention. It's my three
Yeah.
kids, my wife, and then me, usually is the order in which it goes, and that can feel really overwhelming at times. It's like I just need 10 minutes, and I can't go to the bathroom now, especially that we're potty training my toddler without like him being like, "Daddy, I want to come in. Like, I'm gonna sit on my potty too," and I want to encourage that, but I'm like, bro, I would love 3 minutes to go to the bathroom. That's all I want. So much less trying to find time to, do anything else. Work out, make food, go to the grocery store. Those things are challenges. I'm looking out the window at my lawn, which needs to get mowed, and I'm like, I don't know when that's gonna happen. Like that'll happen in a week, next weekend maybe. We'll see.
Yeah. So it sounds like, I mean, the list just gets that much bigger. Like the
Mhm.
list doubles or triples in size. So with that comes way less time to fit all that stuff in, like you were just saying.
Yeah,
What is like, let's start with fitness. We'll talk
yeah,
nutrition in a little bit, but let's start with fitness and see and talk about like what are some things that you've started to do that have helped you, one, keep your sanity,
yeah.
two, make sure that like we're not just like maintaining fitness, but possibly even improving it while parenting.
Yeah, my workouts look really different than they did when I was before kids, even 3 years
Mhm.
ago. So working out was like a little bit of a hobby for me. It's like I didn't have a kid, so it's like, all right, what do I do on the weekend? I'll go do a workout. Like it's just something to do. It's something
Yeah.
to. So it wouldn't be out of the question for me to get 5, 6, sometimes 7 days a week at various levels of intensity working out throughout the week before kids. And now I'm 3. I'm like that's where I'm at. So, and that's a reasonable expectation for me. Like there was a stretch where I was trying to pull off 4 and I just I was going 3 for 4 every week. And I was like, instead of
Mhm.
going 3 for 4, I'm just going to go 3 for 3. I'm going to expect 3 of myself, and that's what I'm going to do. So, I think changing the expectation of myself was important, but then also changing what I do when I go work out. So it's no longer a hobby. It's a necessary thing for me to do to take care of myself. And so when I'm there, I got work to do. Like
Mhm.
I'm not oh, this is nifty, or we're having, like I'm hopefully to some degree enjoying myself, but like I got to work hard. I got to get, the amount of work that I was getting in
Mhm.
less time. I got to be more efficient, but I also have to be more effective with what I'm choosing in terms of exercises, in terms of how I order things. I prioritize different things as well.
Mhm.
So like absolute strength is really not a priority for me anymore. Like how much weight can I lift?
Yep.
Because my heaviest kid weighs 30 pounds. Like it doesn't matter if I can deadlift 500.
Even though,
My
I mean,
heaviest
when Luca Hosever is right next to you, it's no
when
problem.
when Luca's shouting in my face, get your fifth rep, you. I'm like, yeah, okay, Luke, I'll do what you say. For those of you who don't know what Brian's, I went to another event in Seattle, and Luca's one of the best in the world, one of the best in the industry, and it was an event hosted by him and Don Saladino, who's the guy who trains Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively, and then Kelsey Heenan, who her and her husband Dennis have one of the biggest fitness brands, HitBurn, in the country. And so the three of them did this thing, and we're doing a workout at. We started at 8 p.m. Pacific, and I'm Eastern time, and so
Oh,
this was an
wow.
11 p.m. workout for me, and I had been up because I was still on Eastern time. I had been up since 3 a.m. Pacific. My dad alarm went off, so I'd been up for like ever. Had not a ton of food that day. Was just running on caffeine and adrenaline, and Lucas screaming at me, and we did deadlifts, and yeah, a bunch of other coaches who were like, yeah, what do you think? Let's just throw some more weight on there. I was like, sure, we can do that. That's fine. No
Yeah, I
big
could
deal.
totally keep up. No problem.
Yeah, I could keep up, not a problem. But it was, and I had I realized after, I was like, that was the most I've ever lifted for 5 reps. That was pretty cool. They were just
That,
screaming at me.
that is pretty badass, because watching it, I was like, how did that motherfucker slip into that crew? That is, one, impressive. Two, the fact that he did that at 11 p.m. I'm like, Jesus, this guy's
Yeah,
on another level.
yeah. No, that was a lot. That was a lot of caffeine running through my veins at that point. I couldn't see straight. It was very strange. I thought my eyebrows were going to vibrate off. I was just like running on caffeine and adrenaline, but
Sounds
it
like
was
a
fun.
good
It was fun to do
workout in your
that.
teen years.
Yeah, it was fun to kind of throw it back a little bit to pre-kid years, and like have a moment where I'm like, all right, I'm going to go really hard and just see if I can still do it. And I had been training appropriately enough to like where I wasn't concerned I was going to hurt myself.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but that's not my main goal anymore. So like I came back the next week and I did trap bar deadlifts, and I did it with 50-60 pounds less for a couple reps because I'm not looking to like perform at that level. So I choose a lot of exercises as well that are much more joint friendly, where the risk, and I've done this for a long time with my clients, but particularly for myself, I think we sometimes train ourselves a little differently than we train our clients
Oh, yeah.
to get to the point where I'm like, the risk reward factor for me here is like, why do I need to put 300, 400 pounds on a bar and squat it? Like, all it takes is just one like little weird movement, and I'm in real trouble. Whereas I can do Bulgarian split squats with a lot of weight
Mm-hmm.
and not be worried about like, all right, if I don't have it today, I just drop the dumbbells and I'm fine. And I mean, and they suck just as bad as heavy squats. Like,
Oh,
and
yeah.
I could argue that they're more functional because we do more stuff on one leg.
Yeah.
So
And I mean, I don't know
there's
about you, but like my back feels 1,000 times better doing single leg work.
100%. I do very little bilateral work
We're
anymore.
just all Mike Boyles in training.
Yeah, well, so Mike Boyle is actually who I first got my certification from. I did the certified functional strength coach, and so when I was first coming into it, I went down to his gym in Woburn, which is an hour south of me, and I met Mike and I met Kevin Carr, and Kevin took me through the thing that they filmed, which is now the certified functional strength coach online. Like, I was in that group of cohort of people that he took, that me and Cassie Day actually were in that group together, which was pretty
I'm so
cool to like.
jealous. I
That was
100% have seen the DVD that was
yeah.
created out of that.
Yeah, it was cool, and I had no idea who any of these people were. Right, I was brand new in the industry. I had no idea what I was talking about. But it just made all the sense in the world because all the clients that I have coming in, like, we have wear and tear on our bodies, and so it's like, why, when we can get the same results without the risk of it, like, and I also don't want to be so sore to the point that like I can't chase my kid around because I went really hard on leg day. You know what I mean? Like, that's just
That was like
not worth
one
it.
of those paradigm shifts as a young trainer when you hear
Yeah.
like Mike Boyle or anybody on that staff talk about like your clients are not power lifters. They're not bodybuilders. Like, they want to live their lives and not be sore all week. And I was like,
Yeah. Mike's thing for this that I love is your goal, your goal as a trainer should not be to make people sore. And I think that in the industry, there are a lot of myths about this, and there are a lot of coaches who are like, all right, we're here to kick your butt. And
mm-hmm.
that's not my goal. Like, I want you to work hard, but if you came in, Mike says this all the time, if you came in to see me and I took you out back and I beat you with a baseball bat for an hour, just hit you all over, you'd be freaking sore the next day, but you wouldn't want to come back, and you didn't get any better. So
Yeah.
why would you want to come back? Because all you are is sore. And so the idea that like soreness is an indication that you've done, it's just an indication you've done something new. Now I'm sore today because I did some different exercises yesterday. I'm starting a new phase of my programming. Soreness is normal, but it shouldn't be the goal outcome, because the life is lived outside the gym. So we need to train
Exactly.
accordingly.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, when it comes to that style of training, a lot of people kind of find it like not as exciting, or they find it, or they just take
Yeah.
one look at it and they're like, nah, that's not hard enough. That's not going to get me what I want. And you realize that it's like, well, you could go hard on these like crazy programs for a few months, or you
Yeah.
could do the sustainable one for years and get ridiculous results.
Yep. 100%. So this was an interesting thing, because I still train in person at a local gym on occasion. Like a couple of days a week, I do some small group training and stuff like that.
Hmm.
And I did this for 3 years before I was able to make. Actually, it was closer to 4 years before I was able to make this shift, where every single time that people came in, it was a different workout. Now, it was the same, like, the famous Ben Bruno quote that there's only 15 to 20 good exercises, and you just do them over and over again until you die. So there's only so many
Pretty
good
much.
exercises. I just kind of dressed them up a little differently, or I ordered them a little differently, whatever. But they were still coming in and they were doing something that was different. So I wrote 2 new workouts, because I see everybody, I see these groups twice a week. Wrote 2 new workouts every week for 3.5 years. So whatever, do the math on that. That's 400 workouts that I wrote that were different, because the idea was from the top down for me that we're trying to compete with the Orange Theories and the F45s, and this is what we're trying to do is some of this novelty. You come in and we do this sort of thing, and we're trying to like hard and sweat and metabolic and all this kind
Hmm.
of stuff. And I finally had built up a group of people who were coming to see me twice a week. I had a wait list of a bunch of people, and finally I was like, listen, guys, I have what I would like to do. And if you came to see me one-on-one, this is what we would do. And I would like to start doing this together as a group. And I can expand who's coming, but we're going to do some progressive strength training. And you're going to come in, and every Tuesday you're going to have workout A, and every Thursday you're going to have workout B, and we're going to do the same thing for a month. Now we're going to work on block A. We're increasing your total load. Hey, you're lifting a little bit more, or a couple more reps, or whatever. Block B, we're going to make the mechanics of the exercise a little bit different. We're going to go slower. We're going to add a pause. We're going to do something different. And then your conditioning at the end will make that progressively harder as well. This is how I did this with the athletes that I trained. This is how I did it with every one-on-one client I had, every online client I had. This is how I did it with myself. But for some reason, I wasn't doing it. And this was the only place that I wasn't doing it. And I got buy-in from them. And I said, all right, we're going to do this. And we've been doing it now for 4 months. And the results have been nuts.
Yep.
Nuts. Like, people getting their first chin-ups who've been working out for 5-10 years, haven't been able to do a chin-up, getting their first chin-ups. People, like, I got women in there today, incline bench pressing 50-pound dumbbells. Like,
It's pretty damn good.
nuts. Guys in there doing 80s who
Hmm.
had been 3 years ago using the 8-kilogram kettlebell for everything. Didn't matter what we were doing, 8-kilogram kettlebell, because they didn't know what we were going to do. So they were just like, I'm going to go with the safe thing, right? They come in with an
Yeah.
expectation. They know what they can do, and they try to go a little bit further.
So we're
And
going
it's
from like 16 pounds to like 80 or 85.
yeah, same guy, like
That's insane.
55-year-old guy who's been working out for his whole life, like, would look at him and be like, he's in great shape, was always using the 16-pound kettlebell. And now today did 70 pounds for 8 reps incline bench press.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that, because for the longest time at the gym I used to work at, I've been pushing. Like, we all knew that that's what we needed to do, but getting buy-in
Yeah.
from the clients, that's the hardest part. And now
Yeah.
on my own, having a handful of them follow me, like, their results have been night and day in a year in something I didn't
Yeah,
see in them for 6, 7 years.
100%. Yeah.
Because when you get good at the movements, when you perfect it, that's where the progress happens, not just trying something new and getting sweaty and getting sore all the time.
So the analogy that I give for this all the time is like, imagine you started a new job, and the first day you go into the new job, they tell you what you're going to do, and you do it, and you figure it out. The next day you come in, you're going to do something totally different. And then the next day you come in, you're going to do something totally different. And every day you come in, you're going to do something totally different. The only thing that you get good at is being adaptable. But you're not going to get any better at anything. You're probably not going to progress in your job. You're not going to get a raise. You're not going to get promoted. You're not going to get any better at anything other than just being adaptable. The way to get better is, all right, I learn my job and I get better at it because I do the same thing over and over again. And then once I've mastered this, then I go to the next part. I explore the next thing, the next more challenging thing once I've mastered the beginnings of what I'm doing. And it would also be incredibly frustrating because
Yeah.
you would feel like, I don't freaking know what I'm doing. So every time you come in, you're doing a different exercise and you're like, I don't know if I'm doing this right. Is this right? Am I going to hurt myself? Do I feel okay? Am I getting better? I don't know if I'm getting better. I'm sweating. That's the mark, right? That's my wife always used to say this. Like, I would come back, how was your workout? She's like, it was good. I sweat a lot. Like that was the only indicator that she had of whether or not it was a good workout, was whether she sweat or not, because there was no other benchmarks
Yeah.
to measure.
So what are your favorite benchmarks like when it comes to having that discussion? Like, what do you tell clients? Like, this is what we want to accomplish. And if you do this, then awesome, we're on track.
So for parents, I think the first thing is the checking of the box, right? Like, because that's oftentimes the hardest thing, is just the showing up. So let's go 3 for 3. Let's go 2 for 2, right? We'll figure out what it is that we're going to do within this for a longer period of time. But the lower barrier to entry thing is show up and do it. And then you know what you're going to do the next time you show up and do it. So it makes it easier to show up. You know what to expect. You can get through it quicker because you're not like looking at your phone for the exercise demo every time and what weight do I use and all this. You can be more efficient with it the more you do the same exercises. So it's the first benchmark is, let's check the box, 80% of the time, 85% of the time, because there's going to be stuff that happens, right? As parents, it's understandable. The next thing is, I tend to give rep ranges. I don't know kind of how you think about it. But I tend to give rep ranges because it allows for a little bit of that progressive overload without necessarily having to add load, having to add more weight. Because oftentimes, I know you work with moms. I get a lot of moms who are working out at home with like, all right, they have 3 different dumbbell weights. They got 10 pounds, 15 pounds, and a 30 pound, like 130 pound, like just a smattering of things that they picked up at yard sales.
Exactly.
So it's like, all right, we're not going to go from 15 pounds to 30 pounds. So we got to have a range here. So you're living in whatever, 8 to 10 reps. So each week, like, let's add 1 rep to 1 set, right? Like let's move the needle just a little bit, get 1% better every week on these things. So we're tracking reps, we're tracking weights, and we're just trying to move. So we're in this rep range. We start at the bottom, right? We get 8 reps, then we get 9 reps the next week, then we get 10 reps. All right, now we'll go up in weight and we'll probably drop back down to 8 reps. And you just do that, at some point that process slows down and maybe you add the 9th rep on 1 set, right? But if you do that for a little bit, you're going to continue to see significant progress. And that's how people have, in a fairly short order, in small group and online, and all these clients, like, oh man, that's like, how do you get to, whatever, Bulgarian split squat with 100-pound dumbbells and a 40-pound weight vest? Well, I've been doing it once a week for 7 years.
Yeah.
So, like,
you can get pretty strong in
it.
7 years.
That's the idea of, like, we don't have to get there in 7 weeks. You just got to keep showing up and playing the long game, I think, a little bit.
Exactly.
What things are you measuring?
Yeah, I mean, I get a very similar process with my clients. Like we have like that one main lift and we apply the double up method where it's like
Hmm.
basically I'll give them 5 repetitions and then I'll put like a 5 plus, which pretty much means like go to failure on the very last set without,
Yeah.
but it's again, Mike
Technical
Boyle here,
failure.
technical failure. Okay, no
Yeah.
pain, not losing our form, just our muscles are physically not letting us get any more. So
Mhm.
when we hit to that point where we get to 10, then we go up because I
Yeah.
know like at least like in the my experience with training, especially the ladies, it can be very daunting going up in weight, especially when you hit these numbers
Yeah.
in their head where it's like, well, that's more than I've ever touched ever. And you're like, well, let's
Yeah.
just do 5. And it's like they already did 10 with 5 pounds less. They're gonna get 5.
Yeah.
And then from that
100%.
point, yeah, and then from that point, the other stuff is more like reps and reserve. So it's like if I give you
Yeah.
8, pick a weight that you could do 10 with.
Yep. Yeah. I like, I've really been thinking about reps in reserve. The way that I kind of try to think about it is you want to push to that, to that envelope of technical failure. But I actually just talked to a client yesterday about it who's like kind of just at the beginning of her journey,
Yeah,
just started with me, and she's like, she's jazzed up, man. She's like, I went up in my weights, and I'm like, and she's like all amped about it, right? You have that kind of momentum, that energy, that motivation right at the beginning. I was like,
love it.
steer into this, like just run with this while you have it. Like people, we can almost poo poo motivation a little bit. Like
Yeah,
motivation does come and go, but when it's there, you got to friggin' use it, because the days, like there's gonna be, it's a rule of thirds. A third of your
hmm
workouts are gonna be 9 or 10 out of tens. You're feeling great. You're able to push weight. That was in Seattle. Even though I had no, like, that was a Seattle workout. I was like, I could have run through a wall in Seattle. A third of the workouts are gonna be like garbage. Like you just,
yeah,
all you did that day was you checked the box. All I can say for that is that it got done. Like everything felt heavy. I wasn't able to get all the way through all my, whatever. I was short on time, whatever happens. And then a third of them, it's actually probably more of that. A third of them are going to be just middle of the road.
yeah,
So in the third of the time that you have it, you gotta go, man. You gotta take advantage of that and run with it, because there's gonna be the times where it's not there and you're gonna have to rely on discipline. And those are not gonna be the times where you're gonna be oftentimes making progress. Those are going to be the times where you're just treading water. You're just keeping your head above water. And that's okay. Like that's okay for seasons of life. That's okay for workouts, and it's to be expected, and we have to embrace it. We're not going to always be at a 10. But when we're at a 10, we got to take advantage of it, because there's going to be those times where we don't have it, and we got to just leave it. So some days you're going to technical failure, and some days you're like, you know what? I might have 3 reps in reserve today. That's fine. Like,
yeah, yeah.
that's
It comes
fine
down
today.
to that maturity in the gym, like
Mm-hmm.
understanding what kind of day it is, and then being mentally prepared to handle it. Because there's 100% those types of people. I'm sure you've fallen into this category once or twice. I know I have,
Mm-hmm.
where your body's giving you nothing, and you're like, nope, still got to push it, still got to gun
Yeah.
it. And that's when you get hurt, or that's when you just like have a streak of horrible workouts.
Yeah. The analogy that I've been given to some people, and this can maybe bridge into nutrition a little bit too, but the problem that we get into with this is that we don't prioritize recovery, and so that we're gunning it when we're on empty. Like we're not like, oh, the gap, like we've been on zero for a little bit. Like the how many miles left in the tank? You've been on zero, and then you take your car up to 7 or 8 RPM, right? Like you're gonna, even if you don't run out of gas, you're gonna damage your car, because you got nothing. You got nothing in the tank. So oftentimes people are living for a long period of time in that bottom quarter of the tank, and they're only putting in a gallon at a time,
Yep.
and not giving themselves the ability to fully recover, get back to a full tank of gas, and let it kind of run through the system a little bit. And I'm not a car guy by any means, but this is my
Yeah.
an example, which is we let the thing actually run the way it's supposed to be and run on the top quarter of the tank of gas. You live in Toronto, right?
No, I'm actually in
Oh,
Jersey.
oh, you're in Jersey. Okay, everybody was from Toronto,
Yeah,
but you can
I'm
still
one of
get
the
cold.
few
Yeah,
OTA alums
non-Torontos.
that are not Canadian in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah. But you still get some cold winter right in Jersey,
Oh
and
yeah,
I'm in New England, and so we get these cold days, and they always tell you like you don't let your car go below a quarter of a tank in the winter because it like damages, like you need to keep it up there because it's what's best for you. And so we got to like let ourselves come all the way back to recovery. If we're running on empty, it's where we burn out.
absolutely. I mean, I don't know if we get New England cold down here because I've never heard that one, but I should probably start doing that. Um, but I mean, when it comes to the cold, I know that like it's like a whole new set of rules once you get past like New York ish, like once you get up towards in that main direction.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
the Midwest cold is different cold even than New England. Like Milwaukee, Wisconsin, like
Oh yeah,
North Dakota, those places are just like
they're
North Dakota
absurd.
people are like, why doesn't anybody live here? It's like cuz it's the average temperature is like -16 and you literally have nothing. Like you have
Yeah,
nothing there.
I have a cousin
Sorry
that
if
went
any of you
to
are from North Dakota, but sorry if I just made you angry, but there's a reason that
yeah.
nobody lives there.
It's true. I have a cousin that went to University of Minnesota, and they literally have heated tunnels so that kids can get to class. And I've had other cousins at Michigan State that it's actually a legitimate excuse to get out of your class if the frostbite calculator that they have available to students tells them that they can't physically make it to class.
We had cold days when I was a teacher. We had cold delays when I was a teacher where it was like it is too cold for the kids to stand by the bus stop because
Yep.
they'll get frostbite too quickly. So we either have a delay where all right, school starts at 10 a.m. or we just can't. I had a day canceled because the high wind chill factor temperature was going to be like -25,
Really.
and they were like, it's too dangerous to go outside today. Like, stay home. That's the this is I don't know why I days like today are why I live here, but like that's a tough stretch in February. That's a pretty miserable time to live in New England.
Yeah, no thank you. But let's transition a little bit because I know we went over fitness a lot. I know we
Yeah.
went over cold weather strategies. Now let's move it over to nutrition. Because speaking of hibernation mode, we're coming
Yeah.
out of the cold weather. Now it's starting to warm up and everything. What are some nutritional strategies that you've been able to incorporate since the twins, since like being a father for the first time? Like, what are some things that you like to do that are a little unconventional?
Unconventional. Well, I mean, the common, is meal prep and do these types of things, and the challenge of that, I think that most parents would understand is, at least for me, the idea that I'm going to have 2-3 hours on a Sunday to like make all of my food for the week is almost impossible. Like, it just isn't going to happen to have
Yeah.
that amount of time to like just be in the kitchen without wanting to lose my mind, because the kids are going to be climbing all over me. They're going to want to help. They're going to want my attention. It's, even if my wife is there, right? Like, it's just whoever's the most novel, whoever's not paying attention to them, that's who they want
Yeah.
attention from. So,
Just tapping your
um,
leg, tugging you like,
yeah,
hey.
tapping would be lovely. No, it's like pulling, screaming, Daddy! Like trying to climb up my leg or inside of my pant leg. Like, I'm here. Like, jeez, love my kids desperately. Like, but that's a challenge.
Right.
Um, no, it's so the thing that I try to do is, so I'll ingredient prep
Hmm.
some key ingredients, and that I can do relatively quickly. So like I'll batch cook, I'll grill a bunch of chicken
Hmm.
on Sunday as an example. So I'll grill 5-6 pounds of chicken, and that takes me 20 minutes, right? Just throw it on, flip it over, and I can be not out there with it, right? I can just put it on, set a timer, come inside, play with the kids, go outside, flip it over, go back in, right? That takes like little to no time.
Hmm.
I can cut up some vegetables. Maybe I saute them. I could make some potatoes. I could, whatever it is, right? So I have some ingredients, particularly for lunches, right? That's going to be quick for me to do. Um, and then the thing that I try to do, and I tell my clients to do, is menu planning for dinners. So like I have a couple of options for breakfast. I basically eat the same thing every day because it's I'm okay with being boring, but
Almost all
most
of us
people like a
fitness
little.
people are weird. We eat the same shit
Yeah.
all the time.
Well, but this is the thing. So like just as an aside for that, everybody's like, "Oh, I can't eat the same thing every day." I'm like, you do though. You just can't eat the same thing that you don't necessarily enjoy, but you would eat the same bacon, egg, and cheese every day from the
Yeah.
store, or you'd
Just
eat
gotta
like
find that thing you
growing
want.
up. I had Honey Nut Cheerios every morning for breakfast. It wasn't like I was like, oh, I don't really like my Honey Nut Cheerios. It was just I didn't like my Greek yogurt parfait when I was trying to get in shape, 10 years ago, and I was like, this is not enjoyable.
Yeah.
Right when I was coming from Frosted Flakes, like that's a too big of a leap. So the idea that like, oh, I can't eat the same thing every day. Maybe you can't, but like the idea that you can't rotate through a couple of things, like variety, just like with training that we talked about, variety and novelty are the enemy of success. It's a
Yep.
lie. Like, oh, we
I,
need something different.
uh-huh. I feel like those are the people that always struggle. The ones that are always looking for the new thing, always looking for the variety in their workouts, their food. And it's like they just have not mastered the basics of mastering something.
Yeah. I said this the other day, and I was actually really proud of this analogy. Like you hear variety is a spice of life,
Yep.
but you don't go to your cabinet and just eat oregano. Like
Yeah.
it goes on the meat and it goes on the main dish. The main dish is the thing that you can change. So like quite literally with your nutrition, you have the same thing, but you can change how you spice it. You can change how it looks, how it's put together, what are the sides, how you put it together. But the main ingredients, and the same thing with exercise. I'm talking about the 15 to 20 exercises. You're going to do a form of a dumbbell bench press or a bench press. You can do it with a bar, you can do it with dumbbells, you can do it close grip, you can go wide grip, you can do one arm, you can do alternating, you can do it with your butt off the bench, and so you're doing it in a hybrid, you can do it with one leg, you can do it on the floor. There's 50 different, but it's all the same thing.
You're still pressing.
You're still pressing horizontally. It's just how you dress it up. And so if you embrace the fact that like you're gonna press, right? If you embrace the fact that like, all right, we're gonna have chicken a couple times a week, we're gonna have steak, we're gonna have, what are the main things, and then how do we dress it up to make it interesting and whatever. That's kind of and so the idea of novelty is I need a bunch of variety. Like, no, you kind of just need to embrace the fact that going back to the beginning with the example of the job, like we think we want novelty, but we don't actually get any better if we're just doing something different all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
and so then coming back to the idea of menu planning, talk about, all right, well, how many, meals do we want? Well, you eat the same meals right now. You have a menu currently in your life. What are the staple meals that you eat? Right? You're having spaghetti one night, you're having tacos one night, you're having pizza one night, you're having, like, what are the things that you eat? And let's just take those and try to make them again 1% better. What's missing from the meals, right? If it's a spaghetti dish, well, all right, what are we missing? Protein. All right, so let's add some protein to it. And I got 5 different pasta with chicken dishes that I do. It's spaghetti with like chicken parm, like homemade chicken parm with bread and red sauce, and then a salad on the side. So I added chicken, I added a salad on the side. Now this is a complete dish, right? I do, that with a tomato on, like a sliced tomato and a little bit of mozzarella cheese, and with a penne, and there it is, right? And some balsamic glaze, and I mean, like you can have these different, you have your staple meals, and so make a menu. Here are the
Yeah.
5 to 10 meals that I can make relatively efficiently. Like all of my dinners can be made in 30 minutes or less. Most of them 20 minutes or less with a child climbing on me. That's
the key.
That's the threshold. Like, or I say 25 minutes or less, it's the length of a Daniel Tiger episode. That is what I have
And we're officially into
to,
territory I am not familiar with.
yeah. Well, at some point, parents listening will know what I mean. Daniel Tiger or whatever it is. It's the length of a television episode. That's my babysitter, right? While my wife's at the gym in the evenings, and I'm cooking dinners, those nights, and it's just me on 3 kids. It's like, all right, you're gonna be in front of the TV for this amount of time while I cook dinner, and I have until that episode's over to get it done.
It's pretty smart.
So I'm not saying it's the best parenting move, but that's what I pull off. So it has to be able to get done in that amount of time. I'm going to be able to enjoy it. It has the components that I need, and I can vary it to at least one of the components my kids have a shot at eating. Whether or not that my toddler actually eats it it's 50-50. He might
Yeah.
He might not want a piece of cake. Like we had cake the other day, and he just ate. He didn't want the cake, and I'm like, what kind of kid are you? Like, what is the matter? He's like, I don't like cake, and I'm like, yes, you do. Like,
Yeah.
let me shove this in your face, and you'll like it. Like, toddlers are dumb, man. Like, but he's just like, whatever. But like, there's at least a shot that they'll eat a component of it. Right. And then I can like supplement it with some of the easy things that are, all right, I can put some fruit on there. I can put some, some other veg on there. I can put some crackers on there to make it, some cheese, some things to make it like, all right, there's definitely some components here, but I can put on there a little bit of the chicken or a little bit of pasta or a little bit whatever. And it's 50-50 whether or not they're going to eat it. But there's those things. And so it's like, all right, when I lay it out, I have week A, 5 meals. Week B, I have 5 meals. And then we cycle back to week A. Yeah. So it's been 2 weeks. I've had a bunch of different meals, have a night of leftovers, have a night of takeout or a night of date night, whatever it is. That's my thing.
Yeah. And now I know a lot of people listening are probably like, oh my God, that list for the grocery store has to be like pages long. But because you're talking about like the ingredients kind of like standing on their own and spicing it up with other things, what does your like typical grocery list look like so that you can pull off all these different meals?
Yeah, so that's part of it is when you have these staple meals, you know what the ingredients are. And so all of these things, again, they have to be done in 25 minutes. So this isn't like an elaborate dish. So like, I'll tell you a few staples, right? So I'm going to do steak with sweet potatoes and roasted broccoli. So sweet potatoes, I can make in a big batch. Roasted broccoli, I can make in a big batch. So I have enough for a couple of different meals with that. Steak takes 20 minutes and just put it in the oven, right? I can do salmon with regular potatoes and broccoli as an example, right? I could do pasta. That's easy enough. I have chicken that's grilled, peppers and onions, get a lot of fruit for us and for the kids. A lot of frozen stuff that's easy to just like, all right, I'll pull it out and do it as chunks like that. Have the pastas that we're going to do. There's nothing wrong with pasta. We get like a protein pasta to get just like bonus protein in, but you can do whatever kind of pasta. Rice, for a stir fry or something like that. But it's basically, I'll just do the perimeter of the grocery store. So and then I go into the aisles for the couple of things that the kids want. But yeah, my grocery. And then the other thing that I try to tell parents is go more often. Go more often to the grocery store. I go 2-3 times a week, because again, the idea that I'm going to get out and do, an hour and a half long grocery run can feel overwhelming. And like, where do I put all the food? So I'd rather do like 2 20-minute runs and grab the stuff that I need for the next 2-3 nights, because then it also stays fresh. Nothing goes bad, right? Because stuff happens. That's the biggest thing, is like we plan it, but then life interrupts, and all of a sudden I have this food that I have to throw away because it's been, this vegetable has been sitting there for an extra 3 days because whatever happened.
It's always the veggies. So they never last. They never make it the full way.
No. I saw something the other day. It's like on my way to my weekly trip to grab the bag of spring mix to leave it unopened and then throw it away a week and a half later. Like, this is what I was like, I feel really seen by that. Everybody like buy less more often.
Yeah.
and because then you'll see what's happening oftentimes, and you're not gonna overreach to be like, oh, I'm gonna make 10 meals. Like, all right, I'm gonna do, here are the next 3 days, right? Like, chunk it out a little bit that way.
Yeah, absolutely. That I can imagine that it's got to be so freaking valuable because I mean, I know I don't even have kids and I can tell you that that still happens where it's like we run
Yeah,
out of we leave the food in there, order in a couple too many times, and then all of a sudden there's all this wasted food.
yeah. Well, and it feels frustrating, and then you feel like, why do I bother?
Yeah.
And um, and I always cook more too. I always cook for four, and my wife and I'll each have a serving. We might get a serving or a half a serving between all the kids, and then we have a leftover or two meals worth. That's usually what my wife brings for lunch. Like, she
Yeah.
has like her backup. Like, if we didn't have leftovers for some reason, like, she can pull some of the chicken and she can make herself a salad. That's like her backup meal. But most of the time she's gonna bring leftovers. Like, today she brought leftover chicken parm
There you go. That's a
from
simple
yesterday.
meal prep hack.
Yeah,
Just prep your stuff the night or two before. Cook extra. You're already cooking. Saves you time on cleaning the pans.
100%. Yeah. And again, this comes back to like, oh, can I eat it for the next day when I had it for dinner before? It's like, if it was pizza, you would do it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, leftover pizza is fantastic. So it's something that we have to get over the idea that we're gonna enjoy everything that we eat. Just like we tell our kids, like, kids don't want to eat vegetables. Like, we inherently understand that, like, all right, broccoli is not Ben and Jerry's ice cream. It's not the same thing. But I like broccoli. I can do it. Like, I'm not gagging when I eat it. I'm like, it's fine. I can do it. But it's not Ben and Jerry's.
Yeah.
But most of what you're going to eat is not going to be Ben and Jerry's. That doesn't mean that you can't eat Ben and Jerry's. It doesn't mean you can't eat pizza. But most of what you're going to eat is going to be like, again, just like with workouts, most of your workouts are going to be middle of the road. Some of the stuff that you're going to eat is going to be kind of like, yeah, all right, that's fine. And some of the stuff you're going to eat is going to be, that's fantastic. But it's got to be, you have to understand that some of this stuff it's going to be hard. Oh, there he is.
Yeah. Sorry. My Wi-Fi cuts out at least once or twice.
Oh, no
There we
problem.
go. Yeah. Sorry about that. But trying to remember what the last thing he said was. We were just going off
Some
about
things
like
are going to be hard.
yeah, the fact
Yeah,
that I
some of the
think
things
the
you're going to eat
last
you're
thing
not going to enjoy.
you were going on was the Ben and Jerry's and the broccoli.
Mm. Yeah, not everything's going to be Ben and Jerry's, and not everything's going to be broccoli. Most of the stuff's going to be, and so that's how you stick with something for the long term. Is like, I like everything I eat. I like it to various degrees, but I'm not like force feeding myself anything. Like, you don't have to eat something just because it's like quote unquote good for you. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I always use kale as my example for this. Right, kale is on every list of like superfood, and like, if you Google like what are the best foods to eat to lose weight or be healthy or whatever, kale's on every one of those lists. Right, it's kales, it's sweet
Mm-hmm.
potatoes, it's quinoa. It's like, that's on every single one of those lists. But kale tastes like the ground, man. Like, it is
It
it is
really does.
rough to like, the only way I can get through kale is when it's like in a soup and no longer has the molecular integrity of kale. It probably has lost most of its nutritional value. But that's fine. I don't have to eat kale just because it's healthy. I don't have to force, but I like broccoli. I don't like it like I like Ben and Jerry's, but I can do broccoli. I can do asparagus. I can do these other things that I'm like, you know what? This is good. This is good. I'm not doing broccoli with a bunch of cheese sauce on it like you might get at a restaurant, but just roast it with some salt and pepper on it. It's fine.
Yeah, that's my favorite when
So,
somebody's like, "I hate veggies," and I'm like, "All right, well, you definitely don't hate all veggies. Just tell me which ones you don't like." And they're like, "Brussels sprouts, broccoli, asparagus," and then they kind of just stop, and then I'm like, "Anything else?" And they're like,
yeah,
"Well, no, those are the big ones." And I'm like, "Well, that's the ones that everybody hates. So why don't we like experiment with the others? And that without a fail, there's at least one or two that they're like, yeah, isn't that bad.
Yeah, not too bad. So you got to find the things that you enjoy, and that takes some time. It takes some experimenting. So a lot of the biggest phrase that I try to use with clients is like, let's just try it. Let's just see. Like, it's okay if it doesn't work. It's okay if it's not the right fit. It's okay if it's not the right exercise for you. It's okay if you don't like the food. Like,
But it's not
just
perfect. It's not perfect from day one, everything right on point. That can't happen. That's not
that's
allowed,
the
right?
frustrating. No, that's the frustrating thing, I think, for so many of us is like, I don't know if you ever did this, but like my journey was like, I did the Insanity and the T25 and the P90X, right? That have these meal plans that's like, or you're having a different meal for each breakfast, lunch, and dinner 7 days a week, and it's got to be perfect, because the goal of those is to get you the craziest results in the shortest amount of time so that you can send them the after picture. They can put it up on their website, and they send you a t-shirt in exchange for 90 days of your life that you'll never get back and you won't be able to sustain because it was friggin' miserable,
Or they'll make you a
right?
coach and tell you to tell everybody, just keep doing the work. You'll look like me, I promise. Just keep on it.
Just keep on going. And it's just a miserable way to live. And so the best strategy is, just like with working out, is to do less better. Like, instead of trying to, it's like me taking my 18-month-old daughter who just figured out how to walk, and I say, go run a marathon. She's not ready to run a marathon. It's not like, oh, it's not a great idea. Like, she literally couldn't do it. She is not capable of doing it yet. She has to do what the next step for her is, which for her is walking more than once around the house without falling over.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, now my toddler can run. My 3-year-old can run, and he could run for 10 minutes. And he could probably actually 10 is being very light. He could probably run for 30 minutes stop without,
Damn.
nonstop without taking a break. I know, because I've done it with him. Just chase him around the house. But again, that's a long way for him to there. So you have to build up to it. You have to do what your is appropriate for you. And some of us are nutritional or fitness toddlers. And we just have to own the fact that we are. I was for a long time. And there are people who are further ahead than me who, if you want to use this analogy, you and I might be marathoners, but there are ultra marathoners, right? And then there are the crazy people, and we think that we need to be like them, like the bodybuilders who eat just boiled chicken and broccoli all the time. And it's like, no, bodybuilders are a different breed of human.
Yep.
Like, they're not the same type of person as you and me.
No.
It's
But
like,
for some people, for some reason, people think that that's exactly what it takes to get the results that you want.
well, that's what it takes to look like them, but most people don't want to look like that. Or they
Yep.
think they do, but it's like, you don't understand what, like, you have to give up everything.
When you
Like,
hear about some of their like family lives, you're like, yeah, I don't envy that person at all. Like, have
no,
you heard Dave Tate's story?
I don't think I have.
Dave Tate had his kid with his wife at the time, and they had an arrangement that powerlifting came first. Now imagine talking to your wife and saying, like, there were nights that he said that he would hear the baby crying and get pissed because she didn't attend to the baby quick enough, and he had to sacrifice sleep because he had to max out the next day. So imagine that family dynamic work in all these other households. That shit is not flying.
No. Well, and that's just not what most people want. Like, honestly, like, it's just not like some of the famous, like, Chris Evans, when he got in shape to be Captain America and he's doing interviews for it, and they're like, what did you have to do to, get in? He's like, I gave up fun.
Yeah.
Like, I gave up fun for a year. Or like, who's the guy from, is Rob
McElhenney.
McElhenney, yeah, who goes on, he's like, it's simple. All you have to do is have a studio pay for it, work out twice a day for 6 months, have a private chef cook for you all the time, have somebody pay millions of dollars for you to look like this, And I don't understand why everybody's not doing this.
Yeah, and
And
not to mention,
he's
steroids are not illegal in movies.
no. So this was an interesting thing. So talking about Don Saladino, and I don't, I'm not trying to spread hot gossip or anything, right? So I was chatting with Don. I've talked with him a couple times, and he's like, dude, this is part of the industry. Like, there are people in the industry who, like, this is worth it for them because they're going to get made some, multi eight figures, like not just seven, multi eight figures. Some of these like paychecks for movies are 20-30 million dollars. It's like, yeah, I'd take steroids for $30 million.
Yeah. And I mean, we're talking like
Like,
generational wealth. Like if I knew
yeah,
that my great 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 grandkids would be taken care of for me going on a cycle of steroids for a year, you bet your ass I'm doing that.
100%. But like, nobody's paying me $30 million to look a certain way. My kids don't care if I have a six pack.
Nope.
They just don't. They care if I'm comfortable enough taking my shirt off to get in the pool with them, right? And confident to get out and get into the pool. They care how high I can throw them when I get into the pool and how long I can continue to do it. But they don't care if I have a six pack.
Yeah.
But they also care like how much time would be taken. Like, they care that daddy's there to tuck them in, and daddy's going to be there when they wake up in the middle of the night, right? To use the David Tate story. Like, I woke up with my kids in the middle of the night and my workout suffered the next day, but I wanted to be there for my kids. And so there's a cost to everything. You just have to choose what matters to you. And the threshold that we think that we have to get to is, we don't have to get to that place. Most people, to get the results that most people want to get, which is like, hey, I want to be leaner, I want to be more toned, I want to just feel good in my body. Like, you can do that and still enjoy your life.
Mm-hmm.
But you do have to, like, you have to give up some cost, right? Like, the flip side of that is we don't want to go too far the other direction and be like, you can get in shape eating Skittles and that's it. Like, yeah,
Yep.
I mean, you'd lose weight eating just Skittles, but you'd be miserable.
Yeah. And as somebody who's done it, I can tell you it sucks. I did the bodybuilding trip and I would include what was it, Sour Patch watermelon ones.
I love
And
Sour Patch
let me
watermelon.
tell you, great before a workout, but when you go overboard and you're on very little calories, everybody who's listening right now who has done like a 1,200 calorie diet can sympathize. When you eat like anything in that junk food range on less calories, you feel hungry, you feel pissed off, and you like hate life until the next meal because it's not filling.
No. Yeah, this is the reason why, like, so there's two reasons why you eat less processed, more whole foods. There's two reasons why. One is they fill you up more. You're going to be able to eat more calories for less food. No, I said that wrong. You're going to be able to eat more food for less calories. That's what I meant to say, right? Like, think about the Sour Patch watermelon. You eat like a movie theater size thing of Sour Patch watermelon. That's like 650 calories.
Easy.
Eating of carbs, you would have to really work hard to eat 650 calories of sweet potatoes. Like, that's a lot of that's like 2.5 to 3 sweet potatoes. Like, that's a lot. That's more than that. It's probably 3.5 sweet potatoes. That's a lot of sweet potatoes. And you'd be full for a long time. So that's reason number one. And so you're able to eat a lot more food and be more full, so you're less pissed off when you're eating less calories. And reason number two is, when it's less processed, you're getting more of the nutrients out of it, so you just feel better. Like, anybody has had the experience, like, you eat a whole pizza in one sitting. Maybe not everybody's had this experience. Maybe it's just me. But you eat a whole pizza in one sitting and you feel awful afterward. You feel lethargic, you feel sweaty, you get like all these things. And versus, like, you have something that's a whole, less processed meal. Not to say that it's boring, but something made up of foods that are that way, you feel better afterward. You're like, oh, I feel good.
Yeah. And I think some people just need to experience that for the first time, because so many people get stuck in their routine of eating this shitty food and they never really realize, like, hey, if I just give my body a break, I probably feel amazing. And I really do think that's what fuels things like the carnivore diet, like the vegan for weight loss diet, like all these major approaches, because it gives them a break from that style of eating. And they're like, oh, it must be this diet.
Yeah. But the problem with those things is they all work for the same reason. And it's just because you restrict one component, you're inherently eating less food. That's really what it is. Like if you cut out, that's why keto works. That's why intermittent fasting works. That's why carnivore or vegan or whatever it is. Like keto, you cut out carbs. Well, if you're cutting out carbs, you're not eating a bunch of like candy bars. You're not eating a bunch of pizza. You're not eating a bunch of bread. So you're just eating less food. It's not necessarily the carbs that we're doing. It's just you're eating less food. The same thing
Yep.
is true with intermittent fasting. You're cutting out breakfast. Well, what does your breakfast look like? It's probably donuts or bacon and cheese or whatever.
Yeah.
You're
Or that
eating less
muffin at
food.
Starbucks on the way into work.
Yeah, plus your 900 calorie Starbucks mocha latte thing, right? So how much are you? It's just it's the constraint that does it. But as soon as you pull off the constraint, like you don't want to just eat keto all the time because you're like I miss pizza or whatever, then all the stuff comes back because you only got there because you cut out this thing. Whereas instead of thinking about, this is kind of the top down approach in the industry, I think, is how many calories am I eating, right? And then we maybe some people start to get into macros, and then we can worry about food quality and thinking about like if it fits your macros, right? Like that's that whole thing out there, like just eat whatever fits your macros. And while to some degree that will work, your ability to adhere to it is a lot harder if you have never done anything like that, to just be like, all right, live on this.
Yep.
If you've
Absolutely.
always just spent whatever the heck you want to spend with your credit card and you just put it all on the credit card, and then I just said you can't spend more than $100 a month on shopping, that's like that's a next to impossible task for somebody who's shopped their whole lives. We have to work kind of the other way around and to get to the point where then they're like, oh, I can do this. So you got to start with some of the quality, start with looking at what it is that you're currently doing, be like, how can I improve the quality of this, what can I add in that's of high quality, and then you focus on, like, flip it on its head, then focus on some of the macronutrients. Am I getting enough protein, sort of thing, like that piece. Am I getting enough vegetables and fruits into my, so now I'm looking at that, and then you turn around and at that point you can look, say, well, how many calories am I eating? And maybe then you're actually close and you can see, oh, I can just dial back what I'm eating a little bit, or I can dial it up. But it's come from what it is that you're doing versus trying to put a constraint on you that you have no capability of adhering to because you're not ready for it.
Yeah. And that's why it's so helpful having a coach in your corner.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, everybody's like, I'm curious, how many times have you heard the line, I know what I need to do. I just got to make myself do it.
100% of the time.
Yeah. And it's because everybody knows they should eat less. But how do
Yeah.
you do that and not want to rip your hair out from how hungry you are and how miserable you
Yeah.
feel when you're eating 1,200 calories? That's where the
Yeah.
magic is, and that's what a lot of people don't have the knowledge on. They know the what, they don't know the how.
Yes. Oh, that's my favorite phrase. It's literally like the what is not nearly as important as the how. Like I
No.
tell people all the time, like when somebody signs up to work with me, I'm like, I know for a fact whether or not you're going to be long-term successful with this. The gauge for me is not how many workouts you do. The gauge for me is whether or not you show up for every single one of our check-in calls. If you fill out your check-in form every week, even if you've done no workouts, even if you ate like an absolute teenager all week, but you own it and you tell me and we figure it out together, you're going to be the one who's successful versus the person that I never hear from, who does every workout that I give them and they eat exactly according to the plan. I'm like, this is just another thing for you. And you haven't, I don't know. I mean, maybe somebody, it just clicks and it goes, right? That's the 1 in 100. It just
Yeah.
clicks and you figure it out.
Yeah.
But for the 99 others, it's just another diet. It's just another time that you started. And the way to take a before picture and not have to take another one, because that's like the most demoralizing thing, is to take yet another before picture on another thing that you've started. The way to do that is to not try to go to 100 right at the beginning. You have to have somebody walk you through it and do the how in a way that's like oftentimes annoyingly, frustratingly slow.
Yeah. A good tell of like if you're working with somebody that like is in this for the long haul to like make sure that you're set up for life, not just to give them a 3 month store, like a 3 month testimonial so they could use you. Like, is when you start up, it shouldn't be a laundry list of things that you have to do. You should almost
Yeah.
be thinking like, this is it. I'm paying for this. That's
Yeah.
it.
I literally got that the other day. A woman, a mom who just started with me, who's been on this, who's been like, I just can't freaking lose these last like 12, 15 pounds, And I've been like, she's been like, I'm in a deficit. I've been tracking everything and doing all of this. I get 10,000 steps a day. And I'm like, I'm so frustrated that I can't do this. And so when we started, I was like, listen, this is what I want you to do this week. I want you to work out twice. And I don't want you to track your food. I just want you to take a picture of your meal, every meal. And she, in her check-in form, she's like, I don't feel like I'm doing enough. I'm like, okay,
Love those
that's
words.
the point. I want it to feel like you're not doing enough. Because if it feels like you're doing a lot, then it's going to feel overwhelming. Like it's got to feel like, you got to feel like Mr. Miyagi, like the Karate Kid. Like I'm teaching you wax on, wax off, and all of a sudden you figured it out. Right? Like we're going to backdoor our way into this, and you're going to look back and be like, I don't feel like I did anything different. Like my favorite testimonial I've ever gotten was somebody said, I don't feel like I did anything hard for 12 weeks, but I look back in my life and it looks so different than it did. I'm like, you're good. Like you can go now and do this. I have total confidence in you because it's now part of her life.
Yep, absolutely. Because I mean, that's the goal at the end of the day, is to like teach everybody what they need to know so that they can keep it off for life. And if we've done that, we've done our job. Now, I want to be Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're good. I was just going to say, you got to think about, again, the journey of this. Like I can lose it all in 3 months and then gain it back in 6 months and then have to start over again. Or I could just take the original 9 months and do it the right way and then not have to go back.
Exactly.
It's really a matter of what you want to do.
Exactly. You're going to spend the time regardless. You might as well do it the right way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And less frustration.
Absolutely. Now, I want to be respectful of your time because you've been very generous, going on like over an hour here. So I want to make sure that we do
very fast.
We do get the one question that I have to ask every single guest, because it basically tells all of us, should we even listen to this guy? Like, is he even trustworthy?
Yeah.
Like, is this whole hour a waste of listening to this guy? So are you ready for this? I mean, it's a big deal.
The stakes are very high. I'm a little curious.
Very high. This is going to tell us everything we need to know about Jeff. What is your favorite movie and why?
All right. This might be really telling for the phase of life that I'm in, but I think I would say it even before kids. It's The Lion King.
Ooh, good pick.
Here's the reason why. There are many reasons why. One of the best casts for voiceover ever. Matthew Broderick, Nathan Lane. Oh my gosh, I'm blanking on who was Mufasa. What is his name? James
Earl Jones.
James Earl Jones. Thank you.
Darth Vader.
Right. Just unbelievable. Obviously, it's based on one of the most famous plays of all time, written by the most famous playwright of all time, Shakespeare. The animation was way ahead of its time. Opening number is the best start to any movie ever. I don't care what you say, right? Music's fantastic. And it evolves with you, right? You laugh, you cry, the whole thing. So the moment for me that I knew that I had become a dad, right? So what's the saddest part of The Lion King? Spoiler alert.
When Mufasa dies. Yeah.
Right. That is no longer the saddest part of The Lion King for me.
Oh yeah.
This is the moment that I knew I was a dad, and I was like, everything has changed in my life. And so right before that, okay, see if you can picture this and how well you know the Lion King, right? Right before that, Simba's in the gorge, right, and then Zazu comes up to him. Oh no, Scar comes up to him and says, "Mufasa, stampede in the gorge. Simba's down there," and Mufasa goes, "Simba," and then goes and runs, bald, like was sitting there watching it with Levi the first time when I was like, there's nothing I wouldn't do for my son. I like empathize with the father figure in the movie. I was like, oh my gosh. Like it was sad, certainly but it was the moment where I was like, I was the dad and I was like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
like what
You're
would
like,
happen? What would I do? Like,
yeah, you're like, I'll give my life for him. That's fine. But that fear,
yeah,
no.
no, like, cause there's nothing you wouldn't like. There's a moment where I was like, there's nothing I wouldn't do from like to save my kid. Like there like like, oh, why does he jump? It's like there's no hesitation that you would do that. Like, and it was a moment for me, like uh when I was probably 6 months old and we were at my parents' house and my mom was upstairs and she was like rocking him to sleep and I was downstairs and I heard like a thud on the floor and him scream. I was up the stairs in 1 second. Like I might have teleported how fast I got up the stairs. And it was my mom had tripped getting off and she had hit and just scared him awake. You know, so he was fine. He didn't fall or anything. But like the immediate like
Yeah.
I'm going was it was a moment I came downstairs. I was like, that was alarming how like instinctual that was and how quickly I did that. And so there's like no moment where I'm like, okay, there's nothing I wouldn't do
Yeah.
for him. And the fear of, and it's like somebody's always said, like when you have kids, it's like part of your heart. Like your heart is literally walking around outside your body. And so every moment, and it's one of the hardest, most weird tension places of being a parent is when they're gone, you miss them, but when they're there, you're like, I just want space. Like it's that tension point of like, man, I like right now, I'm like, man, I miss my kids. Like I can't wait for them to come home. And then by bedtime tonight, I'll be like, just freaking go to bed. Like I'm done with this day. Like
I
it's
bet
such a
there's a
weird tension
lot of
point.
people listening right now that are nodding their head like, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Oh man. I said it a while ago. It was like there was a point in time where in the span of an hour, I was like, couldn't wait to drop my kids off to daycare and everything because I was like, this is just a really rough morning. And 30 minutes later, I was thinking about how do I rearrange my schedule to have more time with them. It's so, or like you have the worst day and then they go to sleep and you sit there watching the monitor and you're like, oh, such a sweet kid. Or like we went on a date night last night, my wife and I did. And we spent like the first half of the night telling stories about the kids. And we're like, why don't we have like an adult conversation? It's just,
Yeah.
it's such a weird thing. But The Lion King is my answer to your question.
I like that one. That's one the animateds don't get enough time on this podcast. The animated movies, there is a place for them and they hold a nice special place in our hearts.
This is, well, it's also this stage. There's a lot of underrated ones because it's one of the best parts of my life right now, going back through the Disney library with my son and some of the new movies that have come out. There's some really good ones.
Yeah.
What's yours? I'm curious.
Oh, mine is Braveheart because for the same reason, it's an evolution. It's got everything in there.
Yeah.
It's a love story. It's
Braveheart's
war.
great.
There's
Yeah.
funny parts. Like it's the whole
Yeah.
package. And it separating Mel Gibson from who he is in real life. Great actor. So like,
Yeah.
I love his movies, even though I'm able to separate it.
Yes. What's the best one you've seen recently?
Best movie I've seen recently?
Yeah.
Ooh, that's tough. I could tell you one that I saw that I fell asleep in was that Mario one, but that was because I was too
Did you?
tired.
I didn't see it.
I was too tired.
Man. I've only fallen asleep in a movie, like in a movie theater one time.
Yeah.
And it was at the second Hobbit movie. I hadn't even seen the first one, but we went to, brief story. This is totally not related to anything, but my college roommate lost the ability to to recommend really anything to me, but particularly movies.
Yeah,
So he
you
recommended
learn
a
real
couple of movies.
fast.
He's like, this is the best movie ever, and we watched it. And I was like, dude, that was not like.
Wait, he
I'm
said the
not even ready to
second.
call that a good movie.
He said what was
No,
it?
no, 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 no,
Desolation of
no. So
Smog.
it was yeah. So he wasn't saying that one. He said a
Okay.
different one. So that was my first experience with him recommending movies. It was about a boy with Hugh Grant or whatever, which is like, it's fine, right? That's a fine movie. I'm not even ready to call it a good movie, right? That's a fine movie. But he's like, this is the best movie ever made. And I'm like, all right, I don't know if I trust you. And then he goes, we're going to watch, I had never seen Lord of the Rings. This is my sophomore year of college. He's like, we're
And
going to
he thought
watch
that'd be a nice
all
intro.
in one day. What?
He thought that would be a nice intro just to start you on Hobbit.
No. So we sat and we watched all 3 extended versions
Good
of
choice.
the Lord of the Rings in one day. And I was like, this is terrible. Like, I could have probably liked those movies, knowing me. Like, I love Harry Potter, the books. I don't love them, I could have gotten into that if I like watched one of the regular editions a night for 3 nights. I might have gotten into it.
Yeah.
But he kiboshed it. So then at his bachelor party, we go to a midnight showing of the Desolation of Smog. So it's like 1:30 in the morning. And I'm like, and we've been doing stuff all day, and I'm like, this is a boring. Like, and I'm also like, it's Lord of the Rings, and so I have like a bad taste in my mouth. So I fell asleep.
Yeah.
It was a little rough, and so that was the end of movies for me with him. That was the end of it.
Every true Lord of the Rings lover, like myself, will admit the Hobbit trilogy was a disservice to the entire thing. It's not even close. But speaking of Harry Potter, though, I did just knock that game out. I finished Hogwarts Legacy in like a week and a half.
Really?
Because I'm
See,
a
this is the
Potter
thing.
nut,
This is the thing that,
so
yeah, this is the thing that parents. I have not played a video game in a long time, but certainly not since the idea that I would be able to do it. But yeah, I just even movies like Megan and I, we get the kids to sleep. She's like, "You want to watch a movie?" I'm like, "It's like by the time we clean up the house, it's like 8 p.m." And I'm like,
yeah.
I kind of want to just go to bed. It took us 5 sittings to like get through. I don't even remember what movie the last movie we watched was, but it was the new Doctor Strange or something like that. It took us like
Yeah.
5 sittings to get through this movie, which not because it wasn't good, but it was like, I'm not awake enough to pay attention to what's happening, and I feel like this is nuanced enough that I need to be paying attention. It's a little bit trippy to watch it, when you're, late,
Yeah.
8:30 at night, which is late for me in my current life. It's such a weird stage of life. Everybody's like, "Oh, you should watch this show," and I'm like, no, I can't. I don't have the bandwidth for that. I'm like, if I get through a chapter of a book at night, I've had a win. But I recently just made my way through the Harry Potter books again.
There we go.
Which I've read many, many, many times, more times than I care to admit.
Now I'm just curious.
They're very, very good.
What is like one thing from the books that you were pissed or like unhappy with about the movies?
All of the 8th movie.
The 8th, yeah.
All of the 8th movie. They set themselves up like in terms of adherence to the book. The 7th movie was the best adherence. I was like, they are so set up for an epic 8th movie, and then they just decided to change the plot line. They just changed like that. The whole like let's do it together, and they like fall off the thing. I'm like, this is dumb. Like, I just can't even. I was so irritated. I mean, most of it standalone movie. Like, if I just watched it as a movie, the 6th one is, I think, the best standalone as a movie, because I like forget that it's related to the book. Mm-hmm. But again, the end of that one was pretty lame. Like, that one could have been a lot more epic.
That was my favorite book because it felt like they left out so much. It was like a whole different story.
It was. And so it was because it was so different and it was entertaining as a movie, I could like ignore the fact that it wasn't, because the rest of them like kind of tried to be like the book. This one, they just owned that it was different. But they made it funny with the licenses they took. The only thing was, I was like, again, from a movie perspective, you left out the 2 biggest action parts that would have been epic to watch, which was the Battle of Hogwarts was so lame
They
in the
just
8th movie.
glossed over that.
Just right over. It was like 6 pages or 6 chapters of the book. The book is way better with that. It's like I could see it happening, and it was so lame. And then the ending of the 6th one, with how that all went down, and they came back, and Harry's just like hiding versus like in his invisibility and like physically can't move, and then the whole like fight that's happening and everything. It's like, oh man.
Yeah.
But when
Some
we were
liberties
first,
were
I've read these. I've read these so many times that when I first sat in the first movie, and I'm at the age where I wore glasses growing up, so I was at the age that there was a little part of me that thought I was going to get cast as Harry Potter because I'm his age, like I'm
yeah.
you know, so there's a little part of me that thought that was going to be the case. But when we sat in the first movie, I leaned over to my mom and I go, "That's the end of chapter 1." She goes, "You will not do this the whole movie," like because I could do it. I was like, I just knew it so well because I read them so many times growing up, and yeah. So those ones, I gotta let the movies,
Yeah.
just be the movies, and
Well,
that's
I'll tell you that the video game does it justice, at least like in certain ways that I was happy with. Like they actually included Peeves, who happens to be a gigantic character that they just never put in.
Well, Charlie is like not in the
No.
movies at all. The whole Percy thing is not in the movies at all. Like the whole, he's in like the first 2-3 movies.
That pissed me off. I was like, I had no idea how crappy of a person he was based on the movies.
Yeah, you would just think he's just like a little snooty, you
Yeah.
know? And even some of the more like pivotal moments. This is the thing, like some of the more pivotal moments carried less weight because of the way that they developed the characters. And I understand, right, you have to cut some things for time. But like Dobby, as an example, right, was devastating in the books. Like devastating.
Yes.
When that happens. And it was sad, sure, in the movie, but if I had only seen the movies and I had not read the books, I'd be like, he had screen time in the second movie. You didn't see him for 6 years, and then he just showed up for like 2 minutes, and like, why do I care? Versus he's like an integral part of the whole series, multiple touch points, and he's always been like, I'll do for Harry Potter anything. And so then you care.
And that's why I'm so happy I'm movie first, book second person. Because when you do it in reverse, you don't get let down. You don't get let down. It's like a bat. It's like you're looking behind the scenes and you're getting this extended edition. It was so the better way to go.
100%, man. Yeah, if I had that ability, yeah, because then you would be like, because I could see the movies being, if you had no idea what it was supposed to be, I could see the movies being like, that was intriguing. Like, that was good. That was a good movie. Like, I liked it. I liked the world. And then to read the books and be like, holy smokes, man. Like, this is so good. But I grew up with them. Like, my third grade teacher used to read them to us at the end of school. And so I used to like just read them through, and then when the new one came out, I would read it on the day. Like I'd read the whole 850 page 5th book the day that it came out in like 23 hours. Just sat there, I read the entire day.
Jeez.
I was that level of into it.
See, this is why being a bad reader is a superpower, because my ADD brain looks at those gigantic paragraphs and pages with no pictures, and I'm like, nope.
I can't do it with all the things, but with that one, for some reason, it's like it's my comfort food. You know, my wife is like, "Are you really gonna read that again?" I'm like, "It's so good." She's like,
"Bet your ass I am."
Of course I am. It's like, because the other thing, and this is just like my like hack for I don't know, for parenting, but like for me to be able to like go to sleep, because I have a little bit of an addictive personality when it comes to television and things like that, as is made evident by the fact that I read an 850 page book in 23 hours. I'm like, get me to the end. So that's the reason why I don't start new series, right? Everybody's like, oh, you should watch this series. I'm like, how many seasons are there? Yeah. It's like 9 seasons or something like that. I'm like, the problem is I'm going to try to do that in a week and a half, and I'm not going to sleep because I don't I don't do well with like stopping. And so I just watch the same things over and over again, because I can stop an episode of Friends halfway through and be fine. I can stop in the middle of a chapter of Harry Potter and be fine. I don't know if I lost you again.
There we go. God, this internet is dead set on me having to edit this.
Yeah, that's two.
Am I coming
two
through?
Significant ones.
There we go. Sorry about that. My internet just wants me to have to edit this to like the nth degree. But
well,
what are you gonna do? But yeah, I mean, I think that's a pretty good spot to end it on with our Harry Potter rant.
Yeah. Yeah.
So before we close it out completely, I just want to make sure that if anybody wants to get themselves more of Jeff's content, his take on Harry Potter, anything else, where can they find you? What are the best places to reach you at?
So I have a podcast as well. It's called the Dependable Dad Podcast, and I'm gonna have to have you on it at some juncture because this one ended up being a little bit more me running. So I'm excited about that. Not quite as far along as you, but I really have enjoyed it. And then on Instagram, it's at Jeff Dalzell Fitness. Last name is Dalzell. At Jeff Dalzell Fitness. You can connect with me there. Would love to, or on Facebook. I have a free Facebook group as well for parents. It's called the Fit and Present Parent Community. If you want to check that out as well, post a lot of good stuff in there.
Awesome. And to make it easier on everybody, I'm just going to put it in the show notes so you guys can just click away and go right to it. So thank you guys for tuning in. Hope everybody has an amazing rest of their week, and I'll see you next time. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode and you're a new listener, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss another episode. And if you're a returning listener, I would love your feedback. If you could take 2 seconds to just leave a quick review on iTunes or Spotify and rate the show, that would be greatly appreciated. So thank you in advance and have a great rest of your week.